Welcome back, everyone. Trust the Profits right here on YouTube. We got the Roundtable as the Triple Crown continues on the path. We hit the middle leg, the Preakness Stakes. Unfortunately, we don't have a Preakness Stakes with the Derby winner again. I think it's the fifth time in 8 years, I remember, if I did my math correctly. And obviously, when you see the NBC coverage of the Kentucky Derby have the highest viewership since 1989, 21 million viewers at its peak. $350 million bet on the Derby. That's very encouraging. It shows you that there's still that enjoyment and interest in the sport. I'm sure Pimlico is upset, though, that Sovereignty is not making the trek over to Baltimore. Writers up Tim and Sean Patrick Nolan joined me here for the Roundtable. Sean, thoughts on Sovereignty not showing up for the Preakness?
Well, obviously, you'd love to see the horse, go for the Triple Crown. On that one aspect is great. But kudos to Bill Mott for actually doing what's best for the horse. He's a bigger horse. He's a closer, right? Think of our last two Triple Crown winners, Justify and American Pharaoh. They both run on the lead. I think Triple Crowns are won by horses who run in the lead or close to it, right? Sovereignty's not that horse. And I think the 2 weeks for him, Bill Mott's looking bigger and better and down the road. And I think even though it's unfortunate we won't have a Triple Crown, I think it's the absolute right thing to do. It's the best thing for the horse. And I think it'll be even better for him in the Belmont.
Yeah, and I think that there's a bigger plan for Sovereignty, personally. I know it's easy to say it's good for the horse, but I think it's more about Bill Mott's not going to run him back in 2 weeks when it's owned and bred by Godolphin. And Vinny Blonde made a good point on doubling down this week that they got their eyes on the Dubai World Cup. The $3 million in the Derby is nice, but for Godolphin, making a path to go Belmont, Travers, Prep, Breeders' Cup, Dubai Cup, and that made sense to me. Tim, this always stokes up the flames on does the Triple Crown need to change their schedule because of a horse skipping the Preakness, and what I talked about, which is the eyes come away from the sport. We've only got 5 weeks to capture the attention of America and the world. And this always comes up, and the immediate reaction within 48 hours is change the schedule. 5 and 6 days later after digesting it, Tim, where are you on that?
Yeah, I'm kind of on the fence. I want whatever's best for the sport in general, and I'm not sure that changing it is it. Does that really impact and change things? I want what's going to make it grow. I think we need to do more research and find out. Talk to the horsemen, talk to the trainers. Yeah. Would a week make a difference? Would 2 weeks make a difference into the amount of horses running back? And you're always going to get those that are going to go against the traditional Triple Crown being changed. But look, if you look at sports, have we not changed the playoff systems in just about every sport that's out there? I don't think it's as big a deal as people make it out to be. I wouldn't say that I'm advocating to change it, but I wouldn't be against it if we think it's best for the sport and ultimately best for the horses. But mostly it's like what's best for the horse. You're never going to change the what's best for the horse, because even with the change, depending on what happens in training, what's best for the horse still may not get them there.
Yeah, you can't be disappointed if the horse that would be ready for the Preakness is the one that wins and isn't going to go for the. Right. It's supposed to be hard, right? It's meant to be hard.
Yeah, it's supposed to be the challenge. Yep.
And just one more quick point. This is the only race all year long that we do this. We question a horse not being entered.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. Like we're all Bill Motts.
Right.
And I'd agree with you, Tim. I'm on the fence. I think I'd be okay with doing 3 weeks. It makes it a little bit even as opposed to needing to go 2 right to the Preakness to the 3. Beyond that, I do love the tradition. And winning races is hard, right? I don't think that factor goes away regardless if it's 2 weeks or 3 weeks. Right. But if that extra week does make a little bit of an extra difference and does help the horses that are entered, then I'm all for that. But I don't like the first week of May, first week of June, first week of July. That's getting a little too COVID year.
That's a little too over the edge. Yeah.
So that's where we go. So let's dive into the 150th version of the Preakness Stakes, named after the first winner of the dinner party. Thanks to Tim, who did his research in the chat this week.
Yes.
It's a field of 9, and we do get 3 horses coming back from the Kentucky Derby, which I think shows it's not like it's so completely unheard of to run horses back in 2 weeks, because you've got 3 that come right back here. Obviously, Dean Lucas is no stranger to doing that with American Promise. Sandman, I was a little surprised to see him come back. And then Journalism, we was kind of on the fence to see and hear. And to me, Journalism is tier A. And then we've got maybe the rest of the field. And my question first to you, Sean, is this a competitive edition of the Preakness?
I say no. In my estimation, I really think. I mean, anything can happen. That's why we run these races, right, Zach? And we don't know how Journalism does come back off 2 weeks, obviously, but I just think he's in the grade A category, and everyone else in this race is now. You have horses that maybe could step up and become part of that elite level that maybe we don't see under the radar right now. But right now, I just think he's heads and shoulders above this group.
How about you, Tim? What's your thoughts?
Well, I mean, competitive is relative, right? And is it a competitive field? Sure. I think we're going to get a good race, and you've got good race shape, and you've got speed, and you've got those that are going to set off, and you've got your closers, just like every race. It's not like you've got any anomalies to where, oh, there's no speed in the race, or there's a lone speed in the race. I think it's going to be competitive, but I think ultimately I completely agree with Sean that I just think that Journalism is the best horse. There's always going to be the question as to how he does off a 2 weeks race, coming out of what many consider to be one of the toughest races run every year in and year out. But we said this earlier tonight as in the cocktail lounge before taping this, and that is that I'm not sure that Journalism really exerted himself too much.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I haven't talked to anyone, but just watching the race back, it just didn't seem like to me that he did anything that should take too much out of him, to be honest.
Yeah, I agree.
And to that point, Tim, I wasn't going to go here, but I will now because you mentioned it, because the chatter starts happening. I agree with you guys. You didn't say anything that I don't disagree with as far as Journalism is concerned. But as the week goes along, you start, they post a video of him working out and everyone goes, oh my God, he looks so tired. And then that trickles into something, right? And then people start talking about horses like Clever Again and Goal Oriented. I saw this figure that looks like he can compete. And everyone kind of starts trying to talk themselves into somebody else.
Sure.
And you kind of start listening to that and you go, maybe they have a point, because you don't want to ignore the data, right? To your point, Tim, I want to show this right here. This is GPS data that you can get from Equibase. And I was just poking around. You're trying to find something maybe to go elsewhere. It might be hard to see, but this is Journalism. And right here, it shows you the average stride length of the Kentucky Derby at a quarter, half, 3/4, the stretch, and the finish. And what really stood out to me is 26.8, 25, 25, 25, 24. Very consistent throughout the entirety of the race. And this is 1.25 miles. You go and look at, I don't want to use American Promise because he got some trouble, and I don't think it's a great comparison, but this is what you see with a lot of other horses, 27. And by the stretch run, they're running 23s, right? You see like a 3, 4, 5 average foot stride length drop because it's evidence of them getting tired and their strides are getting shorter as the race is getting longer. So to me, seeing Journalism 26, 25, 25, 25, and then 24 in the stretch, it's just that consistency that you get from him. You haven't seen him not be consistent. And if there's a time, sure, the layoff might be part of that. But the speed figures at highly contested races, although short fields in California, I get it. But at least from a class standpoint of grade 2s, grade 1s, he's passed that test. He's had some trouble in races. He's overcome the slop. There might be some rain coming at Saturday in Baltimore. So nothing I can disagree with you about. But Tim, you had mentioned the fact that the race shape, every horse race has these things that we love and these things to pick apart and digest. And pace is always really extremely important to look at because that might be something that causes some horses some trouble. I saw a lot of early speed signed on into this race, and I thought the pace might get kind of hot. Did you agree or disagree, Tim, with what the pace might look like?
I do agree that we've got a lot of horses who have shown speed in the past, and the question is always, do they always go, right? Do they all go? And there's always the one that seems like shows speed and tries to sit back and rate a little bit, and I do think that there is plenty of speed in the race, but it's not like I don't think it's overwhelming. There's mostly speed horses that it sets up anything in particularly well for the closers. I just think we have a great variety of horses that are going to be on the front, off the lead, and closing up. And I just think it's a very fairly shaped race, if you want to say it that way.
How about you, Sean? Where do you kind of see from the pace standpoint?
It won't be as fast as the Derby, clearly. But you just don't get that usually at the Preakness. You know what I'm saying? But it and especially if it's muddy. But sometimes, hey, if a rider is trying to steal and another jockey has the same idea, it can get hot. And then and I think we'll have a solid pace. I just don't think we'll have a Derby kind of reckless pace up there.
I went through and looked at the charts of like the last 20 to 25 Preaknesses.
Mm-hmm.
At the half mile, just about every single horse is within 2 lengths of the leader. So
Yeah,
it's a race where you really need to be forwardly placed. And we've seen that recently with horses that have just gotten out to the front and have gone wire to wire. And that's kind of something that just always seems to happen in the Preakness. And a horse that I think could do that is Clever Again. I think that's a horse that's gone wire to wire the last 2 times at Oaklawn.
Sure.
He's the kind of the horse that I've heard a lot of chatter about. Vinny said, I'll be surprised if anybody wins other than Journalism and Clever Again. I've heard you two talk highly of this horse. He's a horse that could get out there. Tim, are you still feeling that he's one that will get out to the front and maybe take this field?
That's the one that I expect to be on the lead. And if anyone is going to go gate to wire in here, to me, that's the one. There is other speed, but I think that if you're looking at speed, this would be your speed of the speed. And I think that this horse especially getting Jose Ortiz up, look, if there's anybody hotter in the country over the last few months, I don't know who that rider is. Everybody talks about the great year that Flavian had over the summer last year. But since the fairgrounds meet, I mean, his entire meet at the fairgrounds was like record breaking. And then he went to Keeneland, and now at Churchill, he remains on fire. He has a couple more wins tonight. He's just riding really well. If anybody can do it, I think these are the connections. And we do know that historically speaking, we see races like this to where in the Preakness, you see the speed get out and sometimes it lasts. And in this race being a little shorter, that can definitely happen. And Asmussen and Winchell Thoroughbreds, I mean, they know how to get to the winner's circle.
Yep.
How about for you, Sean? Do you have a horse that you think could needs to be forwardly placed and has a chance to knock off Journalism with that style?
Yeah, I mean, I think Clever Again, definitely. I mean, we know Asmussen has terrible trouble in the Derby, but he's won the Preakness twice, so we know he knows how to get it done. He's got the hot rider, as Tim said, in Jose. I think that's a very interesting horse. I think another interesting horse here at a long shot. I'm not saying that he can beat Journalism necessarily, but I think Gosger. I think on the outside, I think Brendan Walsh and Louis Saez. Louis is a very good gate jockey, to get him out. This is a young horse, but Brendan's always liked. I got to stand with Brendan on the apron at Keeneland when Gosger was working out. And he said to me, Sean, I really like this horse a lot. So if there's I think a kind of a upset horse that I think that might get out and be on the pace that can maybe stick around, I think it's Gosger. I think he's a up and coming young horse. Do I think he's, am I going to put him on top? No, but I think he could be right there. And if he gets brave down the end, who knows? It's racing.
Gosger is named after Jim Gosger, who played for the Red Sox in 1963. Fun fact about Jim Gosger, he was the last hitter to bat against Satchel Paige. Really cool story that I read on the, I believe, the Pollock report about Jim Gosger and how this horse was named. And we got the Red Sox connection and the fact that he was the last hitter against Satchel Paige was pretty cool. So that story's over there if you want to go and check that out. We're talking about Clever again, and we're talking about Gosker. I want to bring it back to journalism, because if there are situations where either of these horses are able to pull the upset, or River Times, who we know El Hombre and the Formula are high on, what do you think it is with journalism that upset happens? Like, he had to travel from California. He's coming back on the 2 weeks rest. Are these concerns you guys have, or is he just so much better that doesn't matter? Tim, I'll start with you.
I don't want to say he's so much better. I do think he's a better horse. He should win this race if he's ready to go coming out of the Derby. But that's the question, right? It's always the question with the 2 weeks, and why we talk about why the Triple Crown is tough, and why other horses don't come in here after running in the Kentucky Derby. So that's obviously the question is, did it take too much out of him? Is he ready to go? Is he going to be able to run back to his form and run his race? If he runs his race, he runs away with it. If he runs a little bit less than his race, I think he still has the potential to win this race, but now it gets more competitive. And if he doesn't run his race, then it's down to even a few behind him. But I would agree with what you just said before, that if he doesn't win, to me, I think Clever Again definitely does.
Sean, what concerns do you have with journalism?
Not too many, because I know Mike McCarthy, and Mike McCarthy is one of the most conservative people you will ever meet in your life. He does not like to run his horses off this layup. If he didn't think that this horse was good coming out of the Derby, he doesn't run. I know that for a fact. He would not run this horse if he thought that this horse, I mean, when you even watch their replays, Tim said, okay, he passed all those horses so easily. It took Sovereignty to beat him. You know what I'm saying? But he passed those horses so easily. I mean, up to the front. You know what I'm saying? I mean, like it was almost like just motionless. Umberto didn't even really have to move. You know what I'm saying? So if this horse wasn't or it had a lot taken out of him, I think Mike McCarthy does not run this horse. So the fact that he and Aaron and those connections are running him in this race, clearly they think they have a fresh horse and the best horse. So I'm not really worried. And he went from Churchill Downs to Baltimore, 12 hours, compared to California, that's a skip in the park,
He already did the busy leg of the leg of the travel, as they say.
Exactly. Yep.
As you watch, here is the 8 on the inside here for the Kentucky Derby, following up behind Sovereignty, as we all know. I'll show you my concern. I'll zoom in for you. If you're a speed figure player, you worry about the progression, at least going by Equibase.
Sure.
83, 105, 106, 110. And then these last 3 races are not necessarily the direction you want to see them going. And when you look at that schedule, you start to wonder, is he at peak? And to Tim's point, if he's not at peak, is he still better than what some of these other horses have in here? And to me, I think a 90% journalism and 85% journalism maybe doesn't get the job done, but he's there. I think he's still in the running, and I think he's there. So taking what Sean said about Michael McCarthy and knowing that puts my mind at a little bit of ease to know putting journalism on top is okay. So it sounds like we've all got journalism on top. Guys, if we have to pick a price play, I'm going to say Tim, you have to pick one not named Clever Again, because you've already talked about that horse, and I'm just going to keep going until you pick the one that I want you to say. So who would be up next for you to pick a price play?
Well, here's the thing. I don't like River Tims in this race, because I just don't think that he's much more than a miler. And as long as we stay beyond that, I just think that he is going to be beaten by horses that get a little bit more distance out of it. I am definitely against Sandman in here. We've talked about that multiple times, and I know what you want me to say.
You say what you want to say. I'll take that baton.
I'm gonna give you the horse that Sean talked about, and that's Gosger. I've got Gosger possibly getting underneath in the try. I don't think Gosger's in the exacta. Even to get in the try, I think Gosger needs to move forward, but I think it's a horse that definitely can. The horse is lightly raced coming in, as are, Clever Again, as is Clever Again, and goal oriented in here. But Gosger's one that I just think, especially with the connections, and as Sean talked about, Brendan liking this horse, that was a good performance in the Lexington, and if this horse moves forward, then he could definitely be there, especially if other horses don't run their race, then he could most certainly be there. But I like the 21 morning line odd. I just don't think we get that. I don't think this horse is a 20.
I don't think so either. Nope.
I just don't think that there's any way that we get that price. And if we do, I'm definitely putting this horse underneath and possibly even exactas and tries, but he's going to be in my tries anyway. But I think this horse has a big chance to get underneath. I don't think he's a win candidate. He's got to improve too much.
Sean, the 6 is absolutely, I think, one that, the other half of our channel is high on. We kicked them out because we didn't want to hear them listen to them about River Times for this roundtable. But Sean, what I've talked about through this whole Derby season, that a strong belief that I have is that the Florida circuit was where the best horses had come from, right? We were really high on Burnham Square, who had absolutely the worst trip in the Kentucky Derby. Sovereignty obviously proved his skill. River Times is one of those other ones that's coming from Gulfstream Park, albeit it was a maiden special weight and allowance optional claimer, and then the second in that Fountain of Youth where Sovereignty nips him at the end. I'm nervous about River Times not having him on my ticket. Todd Pletcher, I'm going to ask you this: did he skip the Derby to point for here, or was there something up? Because I think that's there's two sides to the story there, where Tim said, I don't think that's necessarily the case, where it's not like Chad Brown with early voting, where the Preakness was the goal and he came in and he won that race. But you got a fresh horse coming in here for Todd, who's looking to win his personal Triple Crown. He hasn't won the Preakness yet. He's 0 for 10. River Times for you, Sean. What are you thinking?
Yeah, I think Todd realized with this horse too how much ridiculous speed there was going to be in the Derby. And this is a young horse. And I think he just looked at it and said, no, I can't throw him in at 1.25 miles versus this group off a young horse. You know what I'm saying? He said, I could have better days. He's even looking at this horse too as a 4-year-old too, who could be just like, Vino Rossa, who figured out how to do it at 4, you know what I'm saying, and then became like a champion. So I think he smartly dodged the Derby with this horse. I'm sure he would have loved to run him because of his talent. But I think he did point him to this Preakness. And I actually did say exactly what you said. I echoed, Colin, what you said about the Florida circuit on the lounge earlier being the strongest group. I mean, he only lost to Sovereignty by like a length, you know what I'm saying? So, and he was right there in the Bluegrass versus Burnham and East Avenue. Now, I'm not saying that makes that race a world beater, but I'm saying, but he was there, you know what I'm saying? And I do think the mud will actually help him a lot. If it's muddy, I think it moves him up a lot, where I think he can get that extra furlong where the mud may carry him just a little bit even further, where he can at least be there at the end in the exacta or trifecta spots.
Yeah, he's
I don't like him on top, but I like him. I think that it could carry him further than if it was let's say a fast dry track.
And how about a price, Sean? Have we heard who you like for a price? Is that Gosger for you too?
That was Gosger. Yeah, that's my yeah.
All right.
Here's
the part of the show where Tim can close his eyes and put his hat on backwards and go to sleep, because my price is going to be American Promise, at 15-1. This Sire by Justify, tap it on the damn side. I get what Tim. I know the reaction Tim's going to give back to me. Over the last 4 years, I think I've counted 11 horses who have gone Derby to Preakness. They're 0 winners, 3 seconds, 3 thirds. The 3 seconds are Mystic Dan, Epicenter, Midnight Bourbon. the 3/3 are Catching Freedom, Mage, and Medina Spirit. I agree with Tim on Sandman. Don't really want anything to do with him. Gets trouble out of the gate in a race that you want to be forwardly placed, who's taking a lot of money. We've been on that same train, but I have to disagree with American Promise. Now, I'm not sitting here saying I think American Promise is going to win, but the same thing that you just said about a horse getting underneath, I'm going to be betting that 2-3 exacta, because I think that he might even flow up from this 15-1. You get Dwayne Lucas, who just keeps him running, keeps him in shape. So not really concerned about there. The concern for me with American Promise, as I've said many times on a couple of our shows now, and Dwayne Lucas has said this is a big horse. He's a monster. And a lot of those races where Tim has said, look and go back and look at those finishes and Hootie race and what happened, he gets bumped off of that stride and it's kind of over for him at that point. And that's obviously a risk, but it's a price that if this horse doesn't, if he gets out and he gets past journalism and the horses on the outside who are younger, he's got that inside, depending upon what you think about goal oriented. This is the fastest horse. I was talking about that GPS data. For American Promise, 41 miles per hour average first quarter, 42 miles per hour average first quarter in that Virginia Derby that Tim talked about. That's by far and away the fastest when it comes to the average mile per hour in those longer races. So, I'm betting on that fact again, that I think this horse is really talented. I think he's fast. I think he's just had some trouble. And the unfortunate thing is that some horses can overcome a lot of trouble. He can't. He's got to get on that front end with that big stride. And if he can get that, maybe he looks like Seize the Gray from last year.
Or Oxbow. Both Lucas horses that no one really gave a chance, that Gary Stevens brought Oxbow to the front. Everyone thought he was going to quit and he kept going.
Yeah, and he's got that muddy victory over the Oaklawn surface too, the one where he had a 102. He's got those the two races with the 101 and the 102, the two ones that he've won. One is over the sloppy track. The other one was in that funky Virginia Derby where it was only one turn. And that also adds to concern of a horse that you need to keep in that stride, having to go around two turns. He hasn't done much success around that yet. So I've taken all of Tim's ammo away from. I don't think he can hit. I don't think he can say anything else because I've heard him.
I will say one thing before Tim about this horse, is that we said this earlier. Red Ortiz is 0, has no wins around two turns at Pimlico in 23 races. Nicky Juarez has had many races at Pimlico and is 21% around two turns. So you actually have a jockey in this case who actually knows Pimlico probably better than anybody in this race. I'm just saying, and he's 21% around two turns. So I'm saying just from that standpoint, he knows those turns probably better than anybody in this race. So I'm saying, so if you're American, at least you have that going for you if you are an American Promise fan.
Yeah, Tim, can we even convince you to put him in third or no?
How
about fourth? Does he have a super high five?
Listen, does he have a chance to finish in third under the right conditions? Sure. I really think he does. But look, it's just like I've said, it's not that I'm super anti this horse. But I look at the Virginia Derby and the things you pointed out, like the speed and everything else. And I just hear things about what that surface was like. And it was like running on concrete, I hear, and that it was super fast and all of the things that set up perfectly and the 1 turn mile and an eighth. Come on. I think it was absolute perfect race for that horse. Can he get perfect conditions? Yeah, crazier things have happened in a horse race, right? And like you guys have said, it's Dwayne Lucas in the Preakness. So it always has to be considered. I think that even under the best conditions, this horse has to move forward a little bit to be able to compete with the better horses in this race.
And the fact that Getaway Car was able to stay up even on the pace with these horses shows, that what that race was.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll see. At 15-1, like I said, I'm not sitting here saying he's going to win, but he's been one that I try to get under journalism.
Yeah, absolutely.
To try to mix in. Any last takes before we get out of here? Anything we didn't talk about that you want to maybe mention? I'll leave the floor open to either of you.
Yeah. Interesting. Baffert got the rail 2 races in a row. That's just not an ideal thing. But hey, you got Flavian. I mean, I'm just saying. You know what I'm saying? If anyone can overcome that, it's Flavian. You know, and Zach in this time, and I don't see. I mean, go against Flavian in your own peril. You know.
I think the biggest question is, does goal-oriented get out of the gate and make an immediate right turn?
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, it's true. Yeah, exactly. Well, the good thing for journalism is that the 1 has speed and the 3 have speed, so you know that he's going to go. You know, both are going to go. So that so he's going to have the perfect kind of dream trip behind 2 horses who I think have to go.
Which is why I also like Jose being out in the 8-hole on another horse that wants to be out on the lead, and I think this horse has a better path to get there.
Yep.
There you go. That's our roundtable for the 150th Preakness Stakes. Check out my doubling down in the race prior to the Preakness. I have a 12-to-1 horse on top and an 8-to-1 horse in my second slot. So if we can get one of those home in the dinner party, maybe that's how you can make some value if you are a fan of journalism, or if you're a fan of a horse like Clever Again, or some of these other ones. Maybe you can make a score, as they say, with the dinner party into the Preakness. The last Preakness being run at the current Pimlico. They're going to be redoing the track and moving it to Laurel. So some history here for the trophy that is the longest continuously contested trophy in North American sports, with the Woodlawn vase. So we're just dropping facts all over on you here on the roundtable. Riders up. Thanks for joining me. Spin. As always, it's a pleasure. Thank you to everyone out there. Please hit that like and subscribe, and please throw in the comments what you think of our thoughts, and most importantly, who you think is going to win the Preakness Stakes. Till next time, good luck, everybody.
See you, folks.